This story takes place a long time ago, when people escaped the rotting potato fields of Ireland and sailed across the ocean to the prosperous lands of wheat and mountains and railroads. On his own ship, with his 3 brothers, a young man called Paddy watched the bristling shape of Canada in the distance. That night, as they were nearing the shore, the waves began to rise and strong winds began to blow. Viciously, the water collapsed over the ship, gripping it and pulling it under. Paddy and his brothers leapt overboard into the heaving sea, but only Paddy reached the shore. His 3 brothers drowned. The morning came, and Paddy found himself on an empty beach. He looked around for his brothers, but all he could find was debris from the shipwreck. Among the splintered wood, he spotted a flask, a stick of dynamite, and a shovel. This was all he had left. Angrily, he turned towards the ocean and cursed it for taking his brothers' lives and all he owned. "I vow to avenge them," he said. "I will punish the water for what it has done." And so Paddy began to walk into this wild country. He carried the flask, the dynamite, and the shovel. Soon he felt thirsty and spotted a river nearby. As he drank, he heard footsteps behind him and turned to find a Micmac man. The man explained that he was a guide hired to survey a route for a telegraph line, and asked Paddy what he was doing out here in the woods. "I've been shipwrecked, and now I want revenge on the water," Paddy answered. "It has drowned my 3 brothers." The man warned him not to try to control or punish the water, and he nodded but didn't listen. Paddy filled up his flask with water and continued to walk along the river. Soon he came across hundreds of logs clogging the river. The logs had been floated down towards the sawmill by river drivers who balanced nimbly on the wood using spiked shoes and long poles. Now they were trying to dislodge the logjam. A boat waited for it to be cleared out of the way. "Sir," said Paddy to the captain, "will you take me to the nearest town if I clear the logjam?" The captain gratefully agreed. Paddy shouted at everyone to move out of the way, then planted his dynamite deep in the logjam and lit it. It exploded and sent splintered logs into the air. Water leapt and fanned out over the river banks. People cheered as the logs began moving again. "I've been shipwrecked, and now I want revenge on the water," said Paddy to the captain as they traveled down the river. "It has drowned my 3 brothers." The captain warned him not to try to control or punish the water, and he nodded but didn't listen. After arriving in the town, Paddy decided to build an inn. After he finished it, he realized that it wasn't attracting passing boats due to the large distance between the town and the river. He became hopeless. He sat in front of his failed inn and thought of his quest to punish the water for all it had taken from him. A plan began to form in his mind. If the town was closer to the river, every business, including his inn, would flourish. But he could not move the town, so, using his shovel, he would move the river. He began to create a fork in the river curving towards the town. At first, the water collected in it, then frothed back into the main river, but as Paddy's direction gained width and depth, the water began to naturally flow into it. "Mister," said a voice, and he turned to see a little girl from the town. "You shouldn't do that. Don't try to control the river." Paddy smiled at the child, but didn't listen. With the displaced soil, he filled in the old direction of the river and forced all the water his way towards the inn he had built and the town he now called home. Businesses began to grow and flourish. Paddy became a very popular man in the town, and his inn was quite profitable, attracting passing boats. He felt happy that he had tamed the water which had drowned his brothers. Many years passed. One night, a harsh wind began to blow, and rain started as a drizzle, then grew heavy, drilling into the roofs of the town. The dark and powerful river rose over its banks. It swept into Paddy's inn, splintering the walls, which collapsed and were dragged under. Paddy drowned in the flood, and his body was swept into the current. Days later, once the sky had cleared and the river sparkled as it flowed past the remains of Paddy's town, his body floated into the ocean, where he was united with his 3 brothers and the remains of his ship.